We've compared prokaryotic to eukaryotic cells and plant to animal cells. Now to finish this chapter, we're going to focus on different types of cells within an individual organism. How can we tell the difference between these two cells? What is it we're looking at here? Hopefully by this point you know that the top picture is a plant cell and the bottom picture is an animal cell. The quickest way to tell the difference is that the plant has a green color from its chloroplast, as well as a more rectangular geometric shape than the much more round animal cell below it. Let's compare and contrast here. You've only done this about 15 times already in the last week, so what's once more? So how are these alike? Animal and plant cells both have organelles to help maintain homeostasis, and each organelle has its own job to do. The best part of that is that these jobs don't change between cell types, so the ribosomes in animal cells do the same jobs as the ribosomes in plant cells, and so on. Now, how are they different? One easy distinction is that plant cells are green and boxy, as we can see in the picture up top, and the animal cells are more rounded and not green because they don't have chloroplast. We saw questions like these in the cell lab we did last week, but answer them and then I'll post the answers on the next slide. If you remember the LED of the little green leaves had chloroplast on them, made them a lot easier to see, whereas the onion cells, and for that matter our own cheek cells, did not have any kind of coloration, so we needed to use either the iodine or the methylene blue stain. The onion cells weren't green because not all plant cells have to be green. We think of plant cells as being green because a lot of them have chloroplast, but things like flower petals don't have to be green, and the onion and, say, a carrot cells also don't have to be green, because in that case, they're underground, they're never going to be able to make food because the sun's never going to get to them. So it'd be really a waste of resources for a plant to put chloroplast in cells that are going to be underground all the time. As for how cells actually get their jobs, that's what we're going to go into now. Cells that have a particular job to do in an organism are called specialized cells. It's like how a person may say they specialize in something, that they have a specialty, or that they are a specialist. That just means there's something they're particularly good at or focus their attention on. Can you think of some specific cell types we have in our bodies? These are things like red blood cells, brain and nerve cells, and bone cells. They all have their own specific jobs and just have to worry about doing those jobs. These are also called differentiated cells because they're different from each other and from a generic, non-specific type of cell that may exist. How do you think these cells might get assigned their roles, and what makes them take on these different roles? The fact is that every cell in your body has the same DNA, with a complete set of instructions for making every part of you and everything that there is about you. At the same time, every cell doesn't need to know how to do everything. I always use the analogy of a cookbook. DNA is like the biggest cookbook in the world, with the recipes for every type of food you can imagine in one place. If you want to make a grilled cheese, you don't need to read the entire cookbook. That would take the rest of your life. You'd never even get to make your grilled cheese, and that would be a tragedy. Instead, you just need to look up the correct page to find the grilled cheese recipe and read that. You can ignore the other couple of 100,000 recipes and focus on what you actually want. Now, there are these things called stem cells, which are undifferentiated cells, which means they haven't been assigned a specific job yet. They start out as these very simple-looking things without distinct features, on the left in the picture, before they turn into the blood or muscle or fat cells that we need to do the different jobs in our bodies. So again, cells that have jobs only need to read the specific instructions for the things they need to be able to do. But an undifferentiated stem cell, which doesn't have a set role yet, like this one on the left here, still has access to all the instructions in DNA listed at the bottom. This is just because it hasn't been given one job yet to take up all of its attention. Now it's time for the stem cell to get a job and become one certain type of cell. And it decides to be let's say, a red blood cell. That means the cell will just turn off and ignore the instructions for being a white blood cell, and a skin cell, and a muscle cell. And now all that's left are the instructions for how to be a red blood cell, and these will turn on and get used to make it the best red blood cell that it can be. That's it. We're done with chapter 3, so now we'll be able to talk about how these cells actually do all the important stuff in living things. Your test is on Thursday, and remember that you have an organelle project due tomorrow, Tuesday the 19th. They'll count as both a quiz and a lab.